Hello and welcome to Firstpost Spotlight, where we bring you stories that matter to you from all across the world. From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, we shed light on issues that shape our world. I'm Alison Lagrange, live from Durban, South Africa. Let's begin with the top headlines. Israel says it's still too early to assess the damage to Iran's nuclear program. This after a leaked Pentagon report concludes that US strikes only set it back by a few months and did not dismantle it entirely. Japan conducts its first missile test on home soil as Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba's government accelerates the country's military buildup aimed at deterring China. Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan says security forces have foiled a coup plot involving a senior cleric amid his deepening standoff with the leadership of the powerful Apostolic Church. Vietnam announces the removal of the death penalty for 8 offences, including embezzlement and treason, sparing the life of a tycoon convicted in a $12 billion fraud case. And thousands of Kenyans take to the streets to mark 1 year since protesters stormed Parliament at the height of public unrest against President William Ruto's government over tax hikes and alleged misgovernance. Hello and welcome. It's a landmark day for India's space program. The Axiom-4 mission, which is being called as Mission Akashganga in India, has successfully lifted off into space. Aboard the rocket, Indian Air Force pilot Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla, along with 3 international crew members, blasted off from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Now they have embarked on a 28-hour journey to the International Space Station. With this, Shukla becomes only the second Indian to travel to space after Rakesh Sharma's historic mission with the Soviet Union in 1984. Now, as soon as the spacecraft got into orbit around Earth, Shukla shared a message with 1.4 billion Indians. He said this is not the start of just another space flight. It is the beginning of India's human spaceflight efforts.
नमस्कार मेरे प्यारे देशवासियों, व्हाट अ राइड। 40 साल बाद हम वापस अंतरिक्ष में पहुंच गए हैं और कमाल की राइड थी। इस समय हम 7.5 किलोमीटर प्रति सेकंड की रफ्तार से पृथ्वी के चारों तरफ घूम रहे हैं और मेरे कंधे पे मेरे साथ मेरा तिरंगा है जो मुझे बता रहा है कि नहीं हूँ, मैं आप सबके साथ हूँ। ये मेरी इंटरनेशनल स्पेस स्टेशन तक की जर्नी की शुरुआत नहीं है, ये भारत के ह्यूमन स्पेस प्रोग्राम की शुरुआत है और मैं चाहता हूं कि आप सभी देशवासी इस यात्रा का हिस्सा बने। आपका भी सीना दिल से चौड़ा होना चाहिए, आप भी उतना ही एक्साइटमेंट दिखाइए। आइए हम सब मिलकर भारत की ह्यूमन स्पेस प्रोग्राम की जर्नी की शुरुआत करें। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi said Group Captain Shukla carries the hopes and aspirations of 1.4 billion citizens into orbit. President Droupadi Murmu also hailed the launch as a milestone in India's space journey. Underlining the international nature of the mission, President Murmu said that it proves the world is indeed one family. In Shukla's native city of Lucknow, emotions ran high as his parents watched the launch from his former school. His mother, Asha Shukla, broke into tears of joy, and the family members embraced each other as the Vulcan 9 pierced the sky.
हर माँ को अपने बच्चे की चिंता होती है, वो थोड़ी दूर जाता है तो चिंता होती है, हमारा बेटा तो इतनी दूर जा रहा है इसलिए चिंता तो थोड़ी है, लेकिन वो खुशी के आंसू थे, कोई दिक्कत वाली बात नहीं है, ठीक है, अब अच्छा लग रहा है।
In New Delhi, India's science minister witnessed the launch alongside envoys from Australia and Europe, calling it a tribute to Vikram Sarabhai and Satish Dhawan's vision. The Indian Air Force called Shukla's space flight a symbol of India's rising horizons.
It is indeed a vindication of the founding fathers of India's space program, Vikram Sarabhai, Satish Dhawan, and it was destined that this vindication of our founding fathers had to happen under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi. Today, India is no longer a follower. We are equal partners in all our collaborations. And I think it's borne out by the simple fact that of the 4 astronauts in the crew that has gone up, Shubhanshu Shukla is possibly the most important, because not only that he's a pilot, he's also going to perform 7 crucial experiments.
During his 2-week stay at the International Space Station, Shukla will perform 7 microgravity experiments integrated by NASA and ISRO. The mission had faced several launch delays since its original May 29th schedule, but today it is firmly on course and fully operational. And so the Axiom-4 mission is more than just a ride to the stars. It marks India's arrival in human spaceflight, not as a guest, but as a global stakeholder. From Rakesh Sharma to Shubhanshu Shukla, the dream is alive and launched. The Indian flag held by Shukla now orbits above the Earth, and so does the aspiration of the world's biggest democracy. Now, for more on this, we have with us Suresh Naek, who is joining us live from Pune. He is the ex-Group Director of International Space Research Organization and Chairman of the International Space Society. Thank you for being with us.
Yeah. Actually, first of all,
how does Group Captain Shukla's let me jump right in. How does Group Captain Shukla's mission reshape India's position in global human spaceflight, especially as a partner to agencies like NASA through the Axiom collaboration?
Yeah, actually, it is not just a hike on the others' spacecraft. It has got much more importance. It is part of the India's integral part of the space program. And from that point of view, if you look at it, you see, it is actually the twofold. There are impacts. One is we have come a long way in our own space program, and we are just on the cusp of undertaking our own human space mission. That is a very important thing after this.
Yes.
And the second thing is, actually, this particular thing establishes our credentials, and also it will increase our, improve our image, boost our image as a spacefaring country, and who have already started their human space program. And these 2 things will help India to globally position, and that will have an advantage because, in the whole global market, if you see the space market I'm talking about, that is about a huge market. It is about $500 billion. And by 2030, it may double. Okay, presently, our share in that is just 2%. And we want to have, reach that to 10% by 2030. And in that direction also, this particular mission will help us tremendously. Okay, so that way it will help us to reshape our position.
Right. And what are the scientific implications of the 7 microgravity experiments that Shukla will be conducting aboard the ISS? And how critical are they for India's own Gangayaan ambitions?
Yeah, actually, I will touch upon 2 specific experiments. One is under the microgravity environment, how the growth takes place of plants, which we are looking forward as a food for space, particularly the moog, and methi. These 2 seeds he is taking up there, and we will watch how they grow there because the growth of the plant is different in microgravity environment as well. Against that on Earth, where the gravity is there. And we want to carry out that experiment. It is extremely important. And we are also thinking about the same, sort of crops for our space food experiment. And this will give an opportunity to Shubhanshu to make initial observations, and that can be built into our own program. That is one thing. And second thing is, in space, because of the microgravity, what happens is actually we don't have to exert more energy to do things, to do work. And as a result, the calcium in our bones gets diminishing, and that reduces our bone strength and muscle strength. So that is actually called muscle and bone degeneration. And this is
Yes.
particularly a problem for long duration journey to Mars, etc. And also when you go to moon, there is only 1/6 of gravity. So we are going to experiment what can be done
Mm.
about this. And of course, they carry out exercises every day, 2 hours on board ISS, and
Yes.
specially designed exercises because there is no gravity. The machines also had to be special because we can't use the same treadmill what we use on the Earth. So it has to be specially designed. So then it becomes effective. So all this thing is going on. But in addition to that, we are actually experimenting what supplements can be really, can help to retain our
Yes.
muscle strength and bone strength so that when the astronauts come back and after a particularly long stay in space, then they they become weak, and they can't really carry out their activities for few days or few weeks, and
Right.
then again this thing. So these kind of experiments are going to be extremely helpful, and actually already some part of it has been carried out on Earth in when they are yet to take off, because they had to wait for some time there. And then now they have got that kind of background material to compare, and that is going to help. So, like this, there are 5 more experiments they are going to conduct.
Yes. Ms. Naik, thank you very much for being with us on Firstpost Spotlight.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me and giving me opportunity.
Now, moving on, let's shift our attention to a significant development out of the NATO summit in The Hague, where Britain has unveiled a major expansion of its nuclear deterrent in what's being called the biggest strengthening of the UK's nuclear posture since the end of the Cold War. Britain is set to acquire a new squadron of nuclear weapons-capable F-35A fighter jets. Announcing the plan to acquire 12 of these fighter jets, Prime Minister Keir Starmer warned that peace can no longer be taken for granted in an era of radical uncertainty. Each F-35A jet will cost the UK nearly $110 million. As per a British official, the US will supply B-61 tactical nuclear weapons for use on the planes as a part of a plan for Britain to take one more responsibility for NATO security. Now, this decision follows a recent UK security review that concluded Britain must actively prepare for an attack on home soil. This marks a stark shift from a previous defence posture, primarily focused on overseas threats. Starmer's government is increasing defence spending and upgrading its military forces, including its submarine fleet, as it faces increasing hostility from Russia and as the United States retrenches from its traditional role as a defender of Europe. Now, this move is also considered crucial to match Russia and China's capabilities, as both have different levels of nuclear deterrent in the form of tactical and strategic weapons. Prime Minister Starmer emphasized that his government is investing in national security and ensuring the armed forces have the equipment they need. Britain said the purchase of the F-35A jets would allow it to contribute so-called dual-capable aircraft to NATO to carry nuclear weapons in the event of a conflict. NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte welcomed Britain's announcement on the F-35As, saying it was yet another robust British contribution to NATO. Now, according to Britain's Parliament, the last time Britain possessed an independent air-launched nuclear capability was in 1998, when the WE-177 freefall bomb was withdrawn from service. By purchasing the F-35A fighter jets, Britain would be able to diversify its military options and align more closely with NATO allies such as France and the United States, which maintain land, sea and air-based nuclear capabilities. Following the announcement of buying the F-35A jets, Prime Minister Starmer did not rule out the future tax rises to pay for defence spending after the next election, indicating that national security is paramount. Now, it remains to be seen how will the UK's expanding nuclear deterrent help it combat Russian threat in the region. And US President Donald Trump has surprised the world again. This time, it's a statement that confused the markets, oil traders, and left global leaders guessing. On Tuesday, Trump made a surprise announcement on his Truth Social account. He said, and I quote, "China can now continue to purchase oil from Iran." Just one sentence, and years of American sanctions on Iran appeared to be undermined. Why does this matter? Because cutting Iran's oil revenues has been a cornerstone of US foreign policy. The US has sanctioned hundreds of oil tankers for their role in handling Tehran's petroleum. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has in February said that Washington intends to squeeze Iran's oil exports to less than 10% of current levels. The White House has also targeted Chinese entities that have bought oil from Iran. The sanctions were intended to force Iran to voluntarily give up its uranium enrichment. The approach? Squeeze Iran's economy, stop its nuclear ambitions. The timing of Trump's U-turn is also interesting. It came just hours after Trump declared that Israel and Iran had agreed to a ceasefire. A shaky one, with breaches reported on day one. Now, developments of the recent week, especially the threat from the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, sent shockwaves around global markets. Brent crude, the international benchmark for oil prices, surged above $80 per barrel on Monday as US struck Iran's nuclear sites. But it has since traded at around $68 a barrel as traders hope for de-escalation. Meanwhile, media reports say that the announcement left Trump's own officials scrambling. Sanctions on Iranian oil would remain in place, a White House official said. The official added that Trump's social media post only intended to highlight that his actions over the past few days ensured that the Strait of Hormuz was not impacted. Now, there's another layer to this. Trump is trying to repair ties with China. Trade talks are underway. The US is seeking to hammer a new trade framework with China and to climb down from a tariff war that saw duties reaching sky-high prices between the world's two biggest economies. While the recent announcement may ease some legal risks for China, it remains unclear what impact it could have on actual flows. China already buys a lot of Iranian oil, officially 14% of its crude, unofficially even more. Now, these are master shipments through Malaysia, the UAE and Oman to escape US sanctions that China does not recognize. Official data shows that China has not bought Iranian oil since 2022. However, third-party data providers and traders signal that oil flows have been resilient despite US sanctions. The question arises, how? Now, that's because China has built a supply chain outside of Western control. This includes dark fleet ships that conceal tactics to import sanctioned goods and payments via yuan supporting imports of more than 1 million barrels per day. Iran's discounted oil keeps China's private refiners running and fuels its struggling economy. But just last month, Trump had said that all Iranian oil purchases must stop immediately. He warned that buyers would face secondary sanctions and may risk being cut off from the US markets. And China has not kept silent. It has long opposed what it calls Washington's abuse of illegal unilateral sanctions. The US wants Iran to abandon its uranium enrichment. Yet Iran reportedly holds enough enrichment uranium for 10 nuclear warheads. And after Sunday's airstrikes, the extent of the damage to Iran's nuclear facilities remains unknown. So what changed? Is Trump quietly resetting US policy? Or are these just political theatrics while Iran inches closer to a nuclear weapon? And moving on, in recent years, the Gulf has branded itself as a sanctuary of modern stability. Tax-free paychecks, permanent sunshine, and state-backed perks have lured millions of foreign workers seeking comfort and certainty. But on the night of the 23rd of June, that image took a hit with a barrage of Iranian missile firings. This video on your screen right now seems like that from a military thriller. Doha's upscale Villagagio Mall, which is normally echoing with laughter of leisuring shoppers, was shaken by the deafening sound of Iranian missiles slicing through the Gulf sky. Their target? A US military base barely 50 kilometers from downtown Doha. Qatari officials were quick to reassure no casualties, no direct hits. But the on-ground footage told a different story. Rattling glass, emergency sirens, chaos in a place never meant to feel this vulnerable. Shrieks echoed through luxury aisles. Parents whispered comfort to frightened children as the sky lit up in a region they thought was safe. And with that, a once whispered question turned into a roar across social media expat groups. Is the Gulf still safe for foreigners? Or has it quietly become the new frontline in a geopolitical powder keg? Iran's missiles were retaliation after US strikes targeted Iran's nuclear infrastructure. The latest spark in a conflict that began when Israel struck Iran on the 13th of June. A ceasefire, announced later by the US President Donald Trump, appears to be holding for now. And though most missiles were intercepted in the Qatar airspace, the message was clear. Gulf states may not be the neutral ground they once claimed to be. In Doha, the atmosphere the next morning of attack was tense. Services were stable, internet worked, lights stayed on. But the psychological aftershocks continued to echo. In Dubai, expats were drawing up escape routes to Oman. Some foreigners now jokingly call Europe-bound flights through the Gulf Missile Alley. And for many, the real worry wasn't really the conflict, but the flight cancellations. Experts are calling it a disruption of a temporary nature, but risk consultants say that companies are limiting non-essential travel, with some clients opting to stay put and work remotely. The impact on Gulf economies? In tangible terms, reports call Saudi economic slowdown a bigger problem than a rare night of airstrikes. But on the ground, where perception drives investment, the damage may already be done. Most of Iran's missiles may have missed their mark, but the psychological impact, that one hits center mass, and it could be far from over. And that's all we have on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Firstpost.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT. Only on Firstpost.